Hi, and welcome to Green Planet, Blue Planet podcast, highlighting artists, teachers, authors, and philanthropreneurs of the regenerative movement who are committed to planetary purpose. So, in other words, a holistic vision for planet Earth. My name is Julian Guderlei, and in today's episode, I'm interviewing Preston Smiles. Preston is an emerging leader, speaker, freedom coach, and author. He published 2 books, Love Louder, 33 Ways to Amplify Your Life, and also Now or Never, Your Epic Life in 5 Steps. He has impacted millions of people in the self-development space through his coaching, events, his videos, and his just like massively positive attitude. He's best known for the bridge workshops with his wife, Alexi Panos, and the man cave focusing on conscious brotherhood, stepping up the game of what it means to be a man in the 21st century. And so I'm really stoked to have Preston on the show because he is a walking embodiment of that regenerative attitude. And I think we require those examples to learn and uplift each other. And so in that context, I feel like it's one of the most important pieces to achieve those global goals we have, those sustainable development goals, is to like really show up and create a life worth living. And with these words, welcome to the show, Preston.
Ooh, let's do it. What's up, my man? Yes. Beautiful. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Game time. Let's talk. Let's see what wants to be birthed in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love your positive attitude. I love how you just start with like sound and vibe, and that like instantly like it gets me to smile. It takes over, and there's no way to escape that vibration, right?
Yes, sir. That's a lot of us tend to think that mindset is the most important thing, and it is very important. However, we are still animals. And when we shift and allow our animal, our physiology, our biology to express, we are more receptive to the great fullness, the abundance that is our lives. And so I start with a sound and a body movement to open up the channel and the space for whatever wants to come through.
I love that. Let's drop in on this notion of like over intellectualizing and over like mind, making everything about the mind. Like I totally believe that ultimately we are perceiving through the mind, but when I'm stuck in my intelligence and intellectual kind of identity, I'm stuck for good, man. Like in that place, like I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about others. And none of these ideas of regenerative or sustainable development are even like remotely possible.
Yeah, 100%, man. One of the things we teach in our workshop is that the human being is made up of 4 aspects. So there's the biology, right? The biofeedback. There's linguistic, right? We're linguistic beings. We build worlds with our language. And we are social and historical beings, which means we are born into beliefs and interpretations. So if your mother was a Christian, 9 out of 10, you are too. If your parents have a middle-class mentality, then 9 out of 10, you have the same, and so on and so forth, right? And then the last one would be we are quantum beings. And that's that space that people touch when they take Molly or mushrooms or ayahuasca or have, what do you call that? Moments where they get that there is only one of us here. And
nice.
I do my best to bring an awareness to all 4 of those aspects on a daily basis, a moment to moment basis in some ways, and make sure that they're all being fed and also all being questioned to some degree. And I know that the questioning is happening from the mind, and the mind is in my toe, the mind is in my head, the mind is everywhere. It's in my hair, it's every follicle, right? We know that there is all of this, when we break it down, when we look at Preston with the microscope, we just keep breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down, and there is no thing, and yet I exist. And so, and I know I'm jumping around here, but I did Vedic meditation for a year straight every single day. And they would talk about the householder versus the monastic, right? Like this idea of being a regular person who pays bills and drives cars, or the person who sits on a mountaintop and holds their hands up like this until their fingers fall off. And it's interesting, in the spiritual sort of community, we have these ideas about how we should be. And yet, and yet most of us, you know, we still got to pay bills and stuff, man. So for me, I'm riding the wave, man. I'm not sort of locked into any one ideology per se. I'm just being with what is and allowing myself to learn from it, because, you know, we have reflective consciousness.
I love that so much, Preston, because I feel like this is, well, I can feel it in this moment that we're connecting here, but I feel like this is why you're walking your walk and why you're such a role model already right here, right now, because when you're being with what is, that's where the power is. Every time I try to map it out myself or try to get somewhere, I actually realize that it's not happening. And every time I'm just dropping into who I am and what's showing up.
Yep.
You know, I'd like to reference your Vedic meditation there. I feel like it's, for those of you who read the Upanishads or who are yogis, right? It's like what Krishna said to Arjuna, like live by the cosmic laws, but like operate within the human laws.
Yes.
Like I'm paraphrasing, right? But basically, if we're not meeting the dream and the cosmic laws in reality, we have zero power leverage.
Boom. Nailing it. That's it. Right. It's such an interesting thing, right? Like, we're in some ways trapped in these skin suits. And if you really think of it that way, it sucks. But if you think of it as an opportunity, then it becomes really interesting to dive into the nowness of every moment, right? It's so rich. It's so full. I'm never bored. Never. I don't have to prepare for anything, because my life is the preparation, right? It's like, and what's here now? And I'll be with that thing to the best of my ability until the new now is here. And yeah, it's a tricky thing, man. Such a tricky thing. And yet you play the guitar, right? And that takes a certain level of pre-planning, right? Which then becomes like the intention, right? So one of the things we teach is that intention minus reasons plus aligned committed actions equals results. I'll say it again. Intention minus reasons. Because if it's plus reasons, sidelines. We'll just, and everybody thinks their reasons make sense. It's like, oh, I have a kid. Oh, I wasn't born with, rich. Oh, I live in Sweden. I live here. There's no guys that I can date there. Like, everybody has a new reason, right? So you have an intention minus the reasons. You want to beat the game. You want to hack the game like you're playing Nintendo and go, this is what the wounded ego will come and say are the reasons why this intention can't happen. So we list the reasons. And then we also, next to each reason, top 3, we write why it's bullshit. We write why it doesn't actually, like, it's not a fact. It's just an assessment. And so intention minus reasons plus aligned committed action equals results. And that formula, constantly in my life, I'm asking myself, where in that formula am I off based on my intention? So given the guitar example, your intention may be to be able to play the Star Spangled Banner like Jimi Hendrix did, right? Like, to be able to just like make it rain, right? And then your reasons, right? Minus reasons. Give me some of the reasons why you.
Yeah. So my intention, this is a great one. My intention for the guitar is actually to master the bodysuit to bring out skill. The reasons are, I'm bad at music. I shouldn't do this. I don't even want to learn other people's songs. So why am I starting in the first place?
Yes.
My dad told me that, like, I'm never going to learn it, whatever, right? Those are the reasons.
Yes. Okay. So what would be the aligned committed action? And an aligned committed action is different than just action. right?
Yeah, so the aligned committed action is like, that's why you mentioned this example, because for those who don't know, before we hit record and I was waiting for Preston, I was playing the guitar. And so that's aligned for me because why am I doing this podcast? It's because I'm bringing out a form of my expression. And
Yes.
so when I'm waiting, I'm not like worrying about waiting for you, but I'm
Yes.
looking around in my room and I'm like, okay, am I meditating? Am I answering more messages? No, this doesn't actually feel aligned with the energy where I want to connect with you. So I
Yes.
feel like, let me practice something else that's just like vibing into that energy.
1000%, man. And that's the thing. And I want to make the distinction between action and aligned committed action, because, and I've been guilty of this many times where I'll have an intention. I'll even get bigger than my reasons. And then the first thing I do is something that doesn't actually move the needle at all. It's like something stupid, like rearranging my closet, and like has almost nothing to do with the intention, right? It's like barely. It's like when people say, oh, I'm ready to launch my business in X, Y, and Z. All right, here's a good one.
Clean up first. Yeah, interesting.
Here we go. They'll say at the beginning of the year, this is the year I'm going to lose the weight and get in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they make the intention, and they do the first thing. They get beyond the reasons and they buy the gym membership. However, it rains, something happens, and instead of taking an aligned committed action like buying a package that has so much skin in the game that you would lose thousands of dollars if you didn't show up to the gym, instead of doing that, just action would be to shop on Amazon and look for new running shoes. Or, well, I can't go to the gym if I don't have the best shoes. Or that is an action. Yes, it counts, but it's not the one that has so much skin in the game that you have to create results.
I like your example, man. This is like an everyday kind of example. I feel like on the global scale or on like a collective scale, it's the same around regenerative efforts for the world. Like, it's hiding behind, I need to just make sure I have an economic strength personally or as a country before I take bold progressive leaps. That's bullshit. And I think at this point of our planetary consciousness, we're kind of seeing that, and we're demanding leaders to do it. But then the truth is, are we doing it in our own life?
Boom. That's it. It's like, oh, I have an intention to, offset the carbon emission or whatever the case may be. And then, we get a little bit bigger than some of the reasons, but the action that one takes is like, oh, I'm just going to post on Instagram. Like, that's not enough, right? Like you don't talk about it, be about it. And the thing that I want to really nail home in that equation is the results part. It didn't say intention minus reasons plus aligned committed action equals winning. It says equals results.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that most of us get sort of hung up on, is it's like, oh, I tried and I didn't win, or I tried and they didn't, respond well, or I tried and I got negative feedback. No, that's results.
You see, so I love that distinction, and it makes me smile, but also it boggles my mind, because when you're a toddler and you're learning to walk, there's no doubt on your mind that you're going to do it until you walk, even if the result is 111 times of falling on your face. And so, I mean, we kind of understand neurologically and like through science and quantum science why it changes and how we get conditioned. But what I want to ask you, kind of as a related question to that, is like, how do you personally stay that playful? Like, what do you do? How do you bring this playful, like, Joker energy to your life and then let it inform everything you do? Because you're such a great example of that.
I really appreciate that, man. And I think it was 2015. I decided that whole year was going to be about joy and play. Fortunately, and some of you may say unfortunately, I've seen people die bloody deaths. I've seen brains splattered on the ground. I've seen things that have had a lasting effect on me, but the kind that's made me love life so much. The kind that's made me remember what really matters in the scheme of things. And it's one of the reasons why, and my father just recently passed, and my grandmother a month before that. And my dad died, and it sucked, but I was really happy that for the last 8 years, and really especially the last 2 years, our relationship has gotten it got so good. And it's the thing you're pointing at, right? Like I'm so committed to making sure that my cup is full, that the overflow becomes for everybody else. Yeah. And I know, and this is what all of us has to ask ourselves, what makes my heart smile, right? I know for me, surfing, nature, my son's laugh and giggle, anything to do with like learning and teaching, all of these things fill my cup, right? And so if I'm doing that every day, I'm not talking about once a month. I'm not talking about like, 3 times a year when I take a vacation. Every day, I do most of those things. Every day. And 2015 was the year that I decided, and I want all of you to hear this, it's not real until it's scheduled into your calendar. And I put that in my calendar. I literally had every single day, 30 minutes a day, I must go skateboard, go put my feet in the grass and let the sun beam on my face, go meditate, go read, go do something for me. And filling my cup in that way created this sort of vortex of like, life is actually beautiful when you're not a victim to it. When you choose and decide how it's going to be, right? We're all prophets. We're all prophesying. You speak what you seek until you see what you said, right? And so we're speaking it into existence and then matching that with the calendar alert. I have my students do something called a joy alarm, and it goes off three times a day. Every time the joy alarm goes off, they have to drop everything they're doing and just go absolutely bananas, right? Just, I just feel into it, right? Well, after about 2 months of doing that every day, the same thing happens every time. They're like, oh my God, I'm making more money than I ever have. Oh my God, my relationships with my parents, my fans, my family, my friends, my community, better than it's ever been, right? It's like the distinction and difference between somebody who's a vegan, who's an angry vegan, versus somebody who is a vegan who has their cup full, right? They become a bridge instead of a machine gun pointed at you. And that, my friend, is some of the secret sauce. I got to tell you, man, I'm 39 years young and I keep getting younger and better. And I'm not attached to young, like in age, schmage, right? Like,
yeah, but the youth and your energy and the vibration of youth is like clearly there, right? And then that I felt that in people who are 80 before, who,
yes,
when you ask them, you're like, so, I mean, you're clearly older than me, but like you feel so youthful. And they're like, yeah, dude, it was just a choice that I made because I realized it's how I'm actually more joyful. And
yes,
and that always inspired me when I interview or ask older people is like, what are their secret life hacks that they know based on having been in the body for a bit longer than me? Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
I love that answer. I love the joy alarm. I wrote it down because what I do with some of my clients is like the meditation alarm, because people often like ask me like, how do I bring meditation more into my life? And I'm like, well, just do 3 times a day, 1 minute. It's better than feeling guilty for not doing 15, right?
Yes.
But the joy alarm is even better because bouncing and jumping is like, there's science behind it too. Like it breaks up the neurological connections that just repeat the same story, right?
Yes.
And if you're able to shake it off and realize, oh wow, I'm eradicating the perception of who I thought I was.
Yes. I have another assignment that I give my students, and it's called God Goggles. And what the assignment is, and I got this because I had what you call a plant medicine mushroom ceremony about 8 years ago, where I essentially just saw the face of God everywhere I was. I saw it in everything. There was nothing that was not God. And it blew me away. And I said, okay, fine. I'm going to take this and do it every day I'm going to see how long I can extend it. And so I started with like 10 minutes. So 10 minutes for the next 30 days, I'm going to every day just see the face of God everywhere I go. And the alarm will go off, and anything I perceive, anything that's in my space is God. And doing that, it like switched the programming in my whole world. And there was this after effect, right? Okay, so I'm no longer seeing the face of God and everywhere I go, but there's a glow about me. There's an aura that's remaining after that. And so constantly viewing life from the lens of it's all perfect, even though we have things we'd like to shift and change about it. My perception of God, of the universe, of Buddha, of Jesus, of Krishna, of Allah, is that all of those things are one gigantic yes button. The universe cannot say no. It's always a yes. It's always, and so it is. So if I say, God is all, the universe says, and so it is. If I say, love is all there is, was, and ever will be, the universe says, and so it is. If I say, why am I so fat? Why am I so ugly? Why is our government, why is our world so terrible? Why are people so mean? Why are people so evil? The universe has to show me that every single time, in every single way. We cannot beat the thermostat based on the perception. But if you change the perception, you change the program, you change the identity, you change the whole thing.
And the funny thing is, I 100% agree, but on the state of the world on the collective level, that might also take time, which also requires trust and patience in those choices of our perception, right? So by simply asking who are the best people to govern our country or our collective, that might not instantly make it happen. But as soon as more people start asking this and more people start making this their regular inquiry, things massively change. Maybe at first only in your private life, maybe in your private connections, maybe in your private business, maybe in the way you create change in your local community. But actually, that's all that matters anyway. So from there, it ripples, right? And so this is exactly why I'm like, I invited you into this conversation, because I knew you'll like bring such good energy to continue this like clarity mindset. Because what I love about your videos too, Preston, is that you are not shy at all to share what sucks and what doesn't work for you and what you failed and what went wrong. Because a lot of people, when they see this hyper positive attitude, they leave out the negative parts. We're humans, right? So
for sure, 100%. I think that, and I want to presence this because a lot of us get into duality, either or thinking. And I think that's where I do really well. It's choosing, but not wanting, right? It's high intention and low attachment, right? Like, so when I enter into conversations, when I see things that don't work for me, right? I'm not necessarily a fan of the way that Donald Trump is running America. I'm not. And yet I don't allow that to lower my vibration. I choose, but don't want. So I'm choosing to share my truth. And also, if anger comes up within that, I say yes to that too. Right? And this is, to me, where a lot of people create dis-ease, not just in their body, but in their community, in their families, in the world at large. We've become sort of one-sided, dualistic thinking, where we want to just get high on good all the time. And because of that, we're not weapons. We're not whole soul beings. We're not allowing ourselves to be like we were when we were children, right? So dogs bark, cats hiss, right? Humans cry, shit, fart, get sad, have sexual feelings.
Let's drop in there a bit more, because I feel like what you're pointing at is like we're hooked on thinking, wanting only positive, or which is also like an interesting state of the world everywhere where I go, is this like sarcastic, cynic, negative, pointing out what others do, which is like such a shitty place to be for yourself, right? But so how do you personally express anger, or find a way to use anger as a regular emotion that you're not trying to stifle?
Every day, to some degree, I express it in different ways. When it gets really heavy, I lock myself in my car, or I take myself up to the top of a mountain, and I do something called a primal scream. And before I do the primal scream, I bring up whatever is there for me, and I allow myself to lean into the anger and I beat my chest and I stomp my feet and I writhe and I scream at the top of my lungs for like a minute straight. And then I just allow that energy to be there, because all I'm doing is sort of cleaning and clearing. I'm creating energetic space, because energy doesn't have stories. It doesn't speak English, right? It's just stuck energy. So the anger energy could be attached to my dad, the president. It doesn't matter. In the body, it doesn't matter. In the body, it doesn't have a story called, they called you a faggot when you were 12. In the body, it's just stuck energy that wasn't allowed to complete itself. And so when I do these exercises, I'm allowing the body to the animal, the biology, to complete itself. And yes, thoughts sometimes, most times, lead to feelings. Feelings lead to actions, and actions lead to results. Well, before that is programming. So the way I've been programmed leads to the way I think, and the way I think leads to how I, and fill in the blank. And so for me, one of the exercises I do is a primal scream.
I like the Primal Scream, man. I've definitely done this a whole bunch of times. For me, there is the freeing experience too. I kind of found a way to bring that into my singing and guitar practice.
Yes.
Because like it often sounds really off, and I like learned to not give a fuck anymore.
Yes.
Because that's when I do that for 5 to 7 to 10 minutes, I afterwards, and this is really interesting, like I afterwards don't feel misunderstood by people anymore, like at all. I don't care, because I just listen to myself sing. And so if I feel like, oh, we misunderstood each other, I'm like, maybe I didn't communicate well, or maybe you're not listening. But I don't feel an emotional trigger about it anymore. And it is directly correlated to my personal experience of playing and singing. Because it's just this like, oh, letting it out, right?
Yes, you're transmuting the energy, right? That's one of the things that what's the guy, Napoleon Hill, talked about. So one of the most important things is harnessing one's sexual energy and transmuting it. Well, our sexual energy is also connected to our passion, and our passion is connected to our fire, and our fire is connected to our anger. And so all of that, you're just using it. I do the same thing. Sometimes people say certain things in my comments and things like that, and I make an entire series out of that. I'm like, let's get it. Like this, because one of the things I've come to recognize is that I am not special. Neither are you. I'm unique, but I'm not special. And what I mean by that is like the things that show up for me, that make me upset, that hurt my feelings, that make me, all those things show up in millions and billions of people. And so there's probably going to be some resonance. There's probably, if I allow myself, then I become a beacon. I become a lighthouse for those who haven't been expressing.
And you are, brother. Like you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have another question that kind of takes us off from like the mindset and the distinctions and all that. And I want to know from you, because I know you're a dad, if you could either single-handedly or in a collective, if you could change the education system, what would you do?
Oh, yeah. I would get together with amazing humans from as many different industries as I possibly could, and have them sit together for months at a time, and just look at and discuss what our world needs the most, and how we can educate our children such that we can be a little more harmonized on our planet. And when I say a little more, I don't believe in full harmony. I think that ants are violent and horses are, and there'll always be some space where we don't agree. That's what makes this whole thing awesome. However, we can have harmony and peace beyond what we've been experiencing. And yeah, I wouldn't rely on just me, put it like that. Love would be the backdrop for sure. And everything else I'd be open to. Just be the person who sets the container up.
I like that idea of bringing together lots of people to actually make it like a an international quest almost. That's really cool. That's kind of a new version of that. I like your answer, brother.
Yeah, man.
You know that I use the word planetary purpose for my interviews and also like for my coaching programs. And I recently watched a video of yours kind of trashing the word purpose, and I loved it. And so I want to just like dive in briefly into that idea of purpose and the notion of purpose and what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. I think that one of the most dangerous questions we get asked as children all the time is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because that assumes that there is one thing, and that one thing is your purpose for being on this planet. And that's just super disturbing and deeply dangerous. I believe that we are all and on purpose with many purposes. I think that S is forever unfolding like the lotus flower, and each and every one of us, no matter what we are doing at any given moment, is exactly where we need to be. And it's kind of like the butterfly effect, right? Like it's like 20 billion things won't work or would not happen if you weren't sitting in that room at this particular time, listening to this particular podcast. The resonance and the energetic vortex that you and I have created is serving someone else in this now moment. And this is a part of my purpose, right? Now we can talk about overgeneralized sort of ideas about purpose. Like when I speak about my purpose, I say that my purpose is to be the living embodiment of God's love as a father, husband, and transformational coach. Mm-hmm. Now, that is a general encapsulation of something that I may not be able to fulfill in this lifetime. And that's what keeps me going. It's a beautiful, worthy opponent to be with. So that's how I feel about purpose.
I like it, man. The last question I have for you today is your dream for the earth, right? So when I say holistic visions, this is kind of what I mean. Like definitely it's all about being here right now and embodying it from the here right now. But then what's that dream that's like awaken your soul that you hold for this planet?
Ooh, it's interesting, man. They're so, first and foremost is for us as a planet to get that we won't have one for very long with us on it if we don't shift some of the habits that we've created. So my vision is a deep awareness, because awareness comes before choice. So I'm just going to start in that space. It's the awareness as a collective that we are in the 11th hour, and it is game time and time for all of us to begin to see how there is only one of us, and we will be gone if Mother Earth does not get paid attention to.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that. I like this awareness piece to that equation, because really it's already happening. We're already doing it. You listening right now, you're part of it. You speaking that, Preston, you're part of it, right?
Yeah.
Cool, man. People can find your stuff everywhere. They can just Google your name. I'll drop some links under this episode as well. Thank you so much.
For sure.